is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
Are you ready to travel? We got all the travel buzz here on Smart People, Travelwise with Alvin Adriano on PHLV Radio.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm just so excited for all of our viewers watching today. It's always a pleasure to be here and to be speaking to our amazing guests when we discuss all about travel. Here on Smart People Travelwise, we go behind the scenes and bring you different perspectives about the travel industry through travel professionals and, like today's guests, the perspectives of the local and in media. So I'm your host, Alvin Adriano, CEO of Travelwise International. And today I have the pleasure of bringing on a colleague who I've not even met yet, but have connected through our organization, PhilPro, for which both of us are serving as board of directors on. She's super amazing with tons of insights on travel and tourism. I am excited to have this. I mean, she's an amazing Filipino on the show today. She's lived and traveled in some of the most amazing places in the world, from New York to Singapore, from France to Australia. She's a very definition of a globetrotter, and I can't wait to hear some of her story and share it with all of our viewers. But before we get started, as a reminder, please, if you're watching this, if you're watching live, please hashtag live. And if you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. And most of all, share where you're watching from so we can celebrate all of our viewers like you. You can also catch the show on Facebook and YouTube, and you can listen on the show on Amazon Fire, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Or even better, download the app PHLV Radio, and it's available on all iOS and Android devices. So today's guest, Annalisa Burgos, joins us from KITV-4 with 20 years of experience as a news anchor, reporter, producer, nearly a dozen cities across the United States and Asia, and most recently in Manila. She loves telling stories about people making an impact in business, politics, and lifestyle. And while in the Philippines, she was the anchor managing editor at the ABS-CBN News Channel and led U.S. and global news coverage for the morning newscast. She also hosted and produced a popular food diplomacy segment where she talked about politics and culture with diplomats from across the world. Prior to that, she was an anchor correspondent for Channel News Asia, an international news and channel based in Singapore, and hosted What's Cooking, a weekly food and travel show. Before moving to Asia, Annalisa worked in New York as an anchor, reporter, and editor for several major media companies, including Forbes, CNBC, HDTV, Yahoo, and Bloomberg. She was born in LA and graduated from UCLA and Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. She's a 2019 Jefferson Fellow of the East-West Center studying immigration policy and issues in Hawaii, Korea, and the Philippines and Australia. Please smash those heart buttons and please give Miss Annalisa Burgos a well-deserved thank you for being here today. Hi, Annalisa.
Hey, Alvin. Good to see you and good to be on your show. I'm super excited.
Me too. I'm so excited because, again, you are the definition of a globetrotter, someone who's been a lot of places, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about what's going on because people are so excited about about travel. We're still dreaming in our living rooms and waiting for that day to travel. So excited to have you here.
Yeah, I definitely miss traveling. It seems like such a world away, right? From when we could just hop on a plane on a minute's notice and then be in a different world, at least when I was in Asia. So, I mean, because there's a bunch of budget airlines and you could go from the Philippines to like Singapore in like a couple of hours, I miss it. It's amazing, the lifestyle that I had there. And actually the timing actually worked out because when I moved to Hawaii, then that's when the pandemic hit, right? And then everything got locked down. I could have been locked down in the Philippines and that could have been a lot scarier.
Yeah. I mean, the restrictions really played a part in helping us kind of slow down and realize what's important, what things are meaningful for ourselves, and taking the time to realize some of the beauty of why we got to travel. I think, when we traveled before, it was just because we needed to release. But now I'm starting to see that people are starting to learn more about sustainability. And talking about that, I know we'll talk about how Hawaii's economy has been affected by tourism and what we can do to keep sustaining it for future generations.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of, as we talk about over tourism, we can do a lot of parallels with other parts of the world, right? So, yeah.
So this is awesome. So, I mean, just for the viewer's sake, we talked more about your bio, but I thought it was so interesting about hosting a food show because a lot of people, especially for Anthony Bourdain, he says, you can really learn about people when you share a meal with someone. And so could you just talk about your experiences with food and travel and how exciting that was going from different places and learning about their culture through food?
Yeah, no, that was my dream job, Alvin. I mean, I called myself the Asian Anthony Bourdain, except a woman, and I'm not a cook and I don't smoke and do drugs, but whatever. But my whole dream was to, go and travel to different places, try their food, and just learn about the culture, because as a huge part of any culture is their cuisine and their traditions and the history of how they cook, and being based in Singapore, I pretty much could fly anywhere, right? Because it was just so easy to go anywhere. So each week I had a different destination. So I went all over. I went to, Delhi in India. We went to Cambodia. Went to all over Thailand, all over Australia. Yeah,
I saw you stomping grapes for wine. I can't wait to get that bottle.
Oh yeah, I know. And I was so grossed out because the wine guy next to me was like drinking straight from the vat, and I thought, ew, we just stepped on all of that. And he kept saying, no, it's alcohol. It's it's clean or whatever. And I was like, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. But, he's the expert, whatever. And then we picked oysters straight from the sea, right? In Tasmania, and just amazing experiences. So, and then, on the other end, you go to like this Michelin star restaurants in Spain, right? That, they're like art on a plate, literally. And it's talking to the chefs there and just kind of how important to them to share their art with so many different types of people. So, yeah, it was weird because, and then in Spain, it's like they eat so much, but they're not fat. So it's like so weird. They have so much food and so many courses. And I'm thinking, you guys, how can you not be obese here? And
they eat slow. They eat very slow. I don't know what's the trick, because I'm like, everything takes 3 hours to eat. I'm just like, where do you guys have time to do stuff? So yeah, I totally understand. Like, yeah.
It's late, and they eat late, right?
Yeah, they eat late. They break all the rules, and yet they're still skinny. I don't know what the So, I mean, that's great. I mean, food. Travel and eating. I'm a big foodie. I don't know what traveler doesn't love the food. I mean, it's just an amazing experience every time you go somewhere with the flavors, the smells. I mean, in your opinion, what was the best place for food? What was the best experience for touring? What would you say would be your top three, I guess?
Oh, well, that's a hard question, right? I don't know if you asked that from everyone. But
well, I said top three. I thought that would be a little bit easier than saying one, but okay, how about five?
Oh, I don't know. I just feel like each culture is so different. Really? So, like it would be unfair to compare them all. But I guess if you wanted to talk about food experience, right? I definitely like anytime we got to see a source of the food. So for example, caviar, right? We always talk about caviar and like how it comes from sturgeon and how, it had been harvested almost to extinction of the fish, right? So I got this rare chance. I was invited by the Chinese company that makes caviar, and it's outside of Shanghai. And it was funny because people always think, if it's from China, it's like fake or not authentic, right? Like people just didn't believe that China could make caviar. But when you talk to chefs, they will tell you that a lot of, at least the ones in Singapore and some of these fine dining places, that they actually use caviar made from these farms in China. And they're just as high quality as, the ones in Europe, right? So I wanted to see for myself. So that was an example of an experience where, you're busting a preconceived notion of, people. And that's what that company also wanted to talk about, was the fact that, they get this bad reputation, but in actuality, if you did a blind taste test, which they've done with chefs, and the Chinese one, actually, the Chinese one made in China is actually one of the best ones. And they're constantly used in restaurants, but you wouldn't know because of the preconception. So I like that idea, right? Where you just kind of bust a lot of the myths that are out there about culture and about food. So that's one. There's this other place in Zamboanga. Have you been to Zamboanga City?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's in the southern Philippines, right? And it's known for, I guess, around the world, people see it because of the violence out there, because there's a lot of, the racial division down there, right? So Abu Sayyaf and a lot of these terror groups are there's a lot of infighting amongst the people down there. So, but unfortunately, it's overshadowing a lot of the wonderful culture and the wonderful food down there. So just the people that I met there that introduced me to their cuisine, it's a lot of seafood, a lot of delicious flavors, So that's an example. Again, changing your perception of a war-torn culture in, that the media, obviously, as people that are in the media, we talk about often because that's what makes the news there. But in reality, the culture is so amazing and interesting and rich, right? I
totally agree. I mean, that was, before the internet, when travel advisors were like the people who would influence people to go different places, like you think of places like Myanmar, and the Rohingya, and that had so much political strife where people were taking sides. But I went there, and the culture, I mean, it's amazing. And there's nothing like what you would see on how they would depict it in media. And that was where you start understanding, like, the importance of travel is to, not believe what's told to you, but really see it from your own eyes, so you can make your own assumptions, or, you can make your own choices about how you feel about a country and their history. And there's lots of places that really don't get the best rap when it comes to like their countries. And it's really opening that you were able to see that, because not many people do. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about that job, was because I could just say, I want to go to these places and be able to share that type of message with others, right? Because they don't get to go for whatever reason. So, but at least they can be shown. They're not the usual, my biggest pet peeve, Alvin, is like these, I know you said you're a foodie, but some of these other food grammars that they just go to places and take pictures of their food, and they're just like, oh, look how cool I am, and I'm doing this trendy food thing. And honestly, that's like my biggest pet peeve, because I don't think you learn anything about the culture, about where, maybe even a little bit more about that business or that chef or whatever. But yeah, so I'm one of those people that food should be, more of a window to a person's culture, as opposed to, IG fame.
Well,
so I don't want to anger the IG people out there, but I'm a snob that way. Maybe that's why. Oops.
we're both in the same, I guess, age group where, like, I'm used to, like, I remember when I had a beeper. I mean, people were like,
oh yeah,
people were like,
a pager.
Yeah, a pager. And so, like I always think about like how people consume content now and what they're looking for. And, I guess this age group does like sharing foods, their daily foods and coffees. It's exciting for them. So, but again, we can't mess with the IG gods.
But I have to say, that's the biggest thing. I think, if you want to bring it back to here in Hawaii, where I live, it's so annoying because, again, you have people just, taking pictures in places that I guess are considered sacred, or are off limits, or for whatever reason it's culturally important, but because they saw it on Instagram or they saw it through someone else's feed, they want to have that same picture. And then it's like, you know, then these places become overrun and they lose that magic that, you know, that made them special in the first place, right? Because they're so overrun by tourists. And a lot of them, you know, really are kind of fenced off, but because, you know, people just want the gram, the picture for the gram. Yeah. And I think that's what's been frustrating also.
And so, and it's interesting, you know, now that you bring up Hawaii and, you know, it's, you know, the pandemic has really limited the amount of places that a lot of travelers can go to. And so when we talk about restrictions, because Hawaii is part of the US and it was a lot easier, especially with them reopening so quickly. And as a local and in your perspective, you mentioned how the local economy, the residents are being affected dramatically. Is there a push for herd immunity? You guys are almost close to 55%, I believe. And I believe like 74 or at least with one dose. So how does the economy fare now with the government saying, let's pause a little bit, let's slow down? Are they more excited or is there anxiety, do you think?
Well, okay. So the governor made that big announcement, right, last week saying, don't come. This is not the time because our hospitals are overwhelmed. And I think what people don't understand. So, okay, when you look at the rest of the country, right, everyone's open, you know, they don't have as harsh of a strict restrictions as we do here. And people don't understand that, right? When they come, they're like, why do you guys wear masks? And why do you guys have to do this distancing and no outdoor gatherings and no sports and no things, you know, that there's all these questions. What they don't understand is that it's about our healthcare system, because we just don't have the kind of hospital resources, staffing that the mainland has. Like that's the bottom line, you know, like you can fly easily, you know, if you're in California or whatever, you can fly to another hospital easily, right? If you have patients that need care. Here, where do we go? We just have our island, our island. It takes like 5 hours to get to the West Coast, right? So I think people don't get that. And so that's why there's a lot of frustration about, you know, why is it so strict? So that's what the governor said last week. It's like, you need to not come because we are overwhelmed right now. And, you know, frankly, the tourists here on a daily basis can just overwhelm the system, you know, because it's not just locals going to the hospital, you know, for whatever kinds of emergencies. I mean, people here are getting lost in the mountains. Wow. They're drowning in the oceans. They're, you know, think about the kinds of things people are doing here, right? They get injured on hikes all the time. And then we have fire department and emergency personnel that have to go rescue them. All of those resources are limited. You know, we don't have tons of personnel to go rescue people. And so that's why a big, big discussion here is, you know, how do we balance the tourism with residents? And that's why all the residents are just upset, because then you also get tourists that don't understand to be careful, that they have to be careful when they're here. They don't know their limits, right? They just kind of want to go swim and snorkel in some ocean. They don't understand that the oceans here are pretty dangerous, right? It's not like easy, smooth all the time. Maybe Waikiki, right? But the rest of the island, there's like rip currents. It can be really bad. And we report in the news, we report deaths all the time of visitors, you know, that just didn't know their limits. And I think that's why people are, you know, they just don't understand that. And they come here thinking they're going to have a vacation of their life. And then you don't hear these other types of incidents that happen, you know? Yeah. Anyway, I think it's because I'm in news. So I always hear the negative stuff that happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember I saw one of your interviews with the governor about imposing travel restrictions. And like earlier this week, Hawaii Tourism Association announced that they're implementing ways to mitigate the impacts of tourism. I think they're going to do stuff like, ways to protect natural resources. What is it like? they're going to do. Oh my gosh. They're going
You
to
blanked out.
cut down visitor arrivals, a tourism fee. I think they're going to impose a tourism fee, and then enforcement of like the beaches so that people are stay away, or they can direct people from, like you said, sacred places of the island. So
Increase enforcement for sure, because there's always people that just don't listen to laws, right? So they're just going to try it anyway. And then I think the big problem is we're also, so in addition to being short-staffed in the hospitals, I know the police force and the law enforcement are short-staffed. So they have other things to do, right, than to ticket tourists.
Yeah.
But if it has to come to that, it has to come to that because it's causing such a rift between the local population and the visitors who come here.
Wow.
So,
I mean, do you think those steps would be successful? Do you think that's in the right way of steps to like, to help out?
Well, during the pandemic, I think what happened was that people didn't anticipate how many tourists were going to come when they opened the doors. The economy was pretty bad. All the businesses had closed and there was no one shopping. They tried to cater, offer discounts for locals, but frankly, all of the stuff here is expensive. People don't understand the cost of living in Hawaii is very high, and the average income here is very low. So it doesn't match, so I think that's the big problem. People have with tourism is that they need it kind of, but at the same time, it needs to be managed better. Yeah. And, you mentioned earlier about vaccination rates. We actually had pretty good vaccination rates. We're kind of hovering at about 60% fully vaccinated right now, and a little bit more if you only count adults, the ones that are eligible. Yeah. But I think the problem is that it's become stagnant because a lot of people have decided not to get it for whatever reason. Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's the problem, right? Because our culture or our society here, we intermingle with visitors so often that it's, they really want more people to get vaccinated to feel a little bit safer. And especially since our schools are back in session, right? So it's really exhausting, to be honest.
I mean, it goes hand in hand with a lot of things. A lot of people have to understand the global supply chain. I totally agree. When you're in islands, you don't really have really much resources. You have to do with what's available. And when you stress out a system too much, it can be overbearing, especially for the people who are there to keep it maintaining. And it does get difficult. And I'm so interested, because Hawaii, I mean, they do a lot of tourism, but you see in the hospitality and travel tourism, the work levels, employment is still suffering. What kind of steps do you think is important, or how long do you think it's going to take for Hawaii to really recover from this pandemic?
Well, when it comes from an economic standpoint, people have been doing okay so far. Okay. Because it's started to rebound a lot faster than economists has expected, because frankly, Americans were coming here. There was a lot of discounts. They felt it was safer. People had that pent up demand, right? They had been cooped up in their podunk towns in Oklahoma or Wisconsin during the winter. And so they're like, let me live my best life in Hawaii. Yeah. And because when you look at some of these message boards on Facebook, I mean, some people, they spend, they save for a trip here. This is like their life's dream to be in Hawaii. Yep. So to me, it's like, okay, I get it. You want to do that, but some of the, me included, the locals just feel like right now is not the time to do that. I mean, it will always be here. Hawaii is always going to be here. If you put it off for another year, when things are a little bit better, what do you lose? That's just how some of us think. It's like, let's let's kind of ease off the pedal on the economy for now.
Mhm.
But then talk to some of the leaders, and they're like, it's really bad for small businesses. But
Wow.
again, that's another discussion. The big problem, I think, Alvin, here is our Airbnbs and our illegal rentals,
Gotcha.
because we have so many of that here. And to be honest, that's an income for locals, right?
Yeah.
There's locals that rely on this monthly income, because you can get a lot of money from,
I'm sure.
right?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure,
you
yeah.
can. And so they tried to crack down on that. So the government's trying to do a bunch of different ways to try to crack down on these illegal rentals, because they're only supposed to be in certain neighborhoods, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
like Waikiki or like areas that are resort defined, not in like these small neighborhoods. So I
Yeah,
just did this story actually in the North Shore.
Mhm.
North Shore has a huge problem with illegal Airbnbs. And there was this huge house party in this small little community in the North Shore. And it was like organized by a Mormon team who just moved here because BYU, I don't know if you know the history of the North Shore, but the settlers from the Church of Latter-day Saints, they came, they owned that a big portion there where the BYU campus is.
Uh-huh.
And also there's the Polynesian Cultural Center, which is also run by the Mormons. And so a lot of that community, they live, work, and, a lot of them are from that area. They have generations that have lived there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of these mainland young people coming and moving to that area, the North Shore, taking up a lot of the housing that it's supposed to be for BYU students, or that used to be for BYU students.
Gotcha.
And it's causing this like rift, because they have this like party mentality, like I'm in North Shore, I'm living this life, we got parties, and it's causing such like, so this party on Friday, like all the locals were like, what's going on? There's a statewide ban on parties, and this person doesn't. And I spoke to the girl who organized it, and she said, I just thought it would be fun, and I don't know why it's illegal. And, it was just like, wow, just no understanding of rules here. Right. And that's, and that's the thing. That's another trend. People are moving here, right? Because you could work remotely.
Mm-hmm.
You could ride out the pandemic here. Like, why would you want to live in other places, I guess, right? I don't know. So that's another sore spot for a lot of people, because they're pricing out locals. They're willing to pay more. So then housing is such a huge issue for locals now. Well, it's always been, but affordable housing is getting worse because of the wealthy or the transplants that are coming here, buying up properties.
Yeah. Well, no, it's so interesting. I mean, again, like you said, people save money, lifetimes of money to go to their paradise island of Hawaii. This is the perception they made in their head. And then there's always a darker side to every picture. And you see, like how the economy and the locals are really suffering because of the influx of money, different people taking advantage of the natural resources out there, and then taking rules out of context to really find loopholes. And it's so interesting because, again, tourism brings cultures together, whether you want to or not. But the mainland culture of partying and indiscretion, of just enjoying what they can take, is now affecting Hawaii residents, and it's so eye-opening. I know when I was covering watching one of your coverage, the lines in the airport are like ridiculous now.
Yes.
I was just like so dumbfounded. Like, I've never seen Hawaii airport like that. And so
when was the last time you came?
2 years ago. On my way to Philippines, I usually stop over and go shopping real quick and then go home.
Was it bad? Was it bad?
I mean, again, there's people waiting, but never outside of that type of before the TSA. I've never seen anything like that. And so,
it's bad.
Yeah. I mean, I love the airport because it's open air and you're just like, oh, this is like the best airport. But when you see lines like that, it just looks like I mean, everyone's disgruntled, everyone's pissed off, and no one wants to, like, it's just horrible. So,
and it's not social distancing.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not social distancing.
If you're worried about COVID,
Yeah.
you're all like scrunched up in this area. And so I was flying out of Maui. It's really bad in Maui too.
Mhm.
When I was in line at the TSA in Maui, it was like an hour and a half line. And it was just like, oh my God, like we are all bunched up together and we're wearing masks, but I'm just like, it just made me so uncomfortable because we were standing there for so long in that little space, you know, and they're trying to hire more people to do TSA there because it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then, as you know, you have to make reservations at places to eat because we are under this kind of 50% capacity rule and a lot of places, and we're starting a vaccine passport. So basically on September 13th, in order to go to a bar, restaurant, any kind of entertainment, indoor center, gyms, you have to show a vaccine card in order to get in, or you have to have shown negative test results. Like you had to have gotten a negative test result within the last 48 hours. And it was part of the whole thing, like, you know, get vaccinated or we're going to be harsher. You know, we were going to require people have these, you know, and now there's this huge protests going on because they don't want this type of mandates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to affect visitors because a lot of them are vaccinated anyway, right? I don't know if people are coming in with them or if they're taking tests, they can just show the test that they took, right? Yeah. And then they can go to their whatever restaurant they're going to. But I don't know. I just don't think the experience, if you're coming here to just go hiking, and I don't know, it depends what you're looking for. If you're coming to hike and be out in nature and go to the beach and just do your own little thing, then okay, I guess it won't affect you, right? But if you're a family and you're trying to stay at a resort and you're trying to like go to restaurants and have that kind of experience, I don't know if you'll enjoy it, you know, because you're just gonna have to wait. I had friends come in, for example, like a month ago, and they were so stressed out about finding places to eat because they were so big of a party. There was like 8 of them. Oh, wow. And they couldn't find any place that would take them. So, you know, in the end, you're just going to have to like order Foodland and like eat at home or at the beach, which is fine. You take your food to the beach and eat at the beach. So, but don't expect to go to any of these restaurants. Or if you do, just wait for an hour or 2 hours, whatever.
Well, I think that's also important. Like, traveler awareness about what they're getting into, you know, especially like I like the fact that they're investing in letting travelers know what to expect when they get there, what not to do. I think everyone needs to get like an understanding of like, this is what happens when you go to different places. You have to respect the rules. These are the customs. This is how you follow so that you don't piss anyone off. It's really important that you guys do that. But also,
well, they have to because they need it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People do. I mean, again, people travel for sometimes the good reasons, sometimes for the wrong reasons. And YOLO, you know, I'll do whatever I want. Just like,
I know. I'm too old to be YOLO.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's still etiquette. You still have to have etiquette, guys. I mean, you can't throw everything out the window.
I don't know, but you'd be surprised. Some people, I don't know. Maybe it's just not my personality, but when I'm on vacation, I still am very considerate of the local culture. You know,
like we're travelers. I guess, you know, it's a little bit different when people don't get, I mean, everyone's been stuck inside. They're like, forget the rules. I don't care. I've been trapped, I guess. I mean, I see people all the time, just like going, like you see some of these, the sporting events and people are going crazy, like in brawls sometimes, just like, is that what tourists are like, you know, in airports? They're just like, I just want to go. So, but I thought it was interesting too, because I wonder, you know, like tourism is such a big factor, but there's also another side. There's also the industry side, you know, it's not just a small business, but the airlines have been suffering for a long time. Do you think there's pressure from the airlines to push like, hey, we got to get all these people here because we need to make our money? Or, you know, like,
okay, Alvin, I'm going to be straight up with you. I have no sympathy for the airlines. They get bailouts.
Yeah.
Think about that. They are bailed out by the federal government.
Yes.
Like, who cares?
Gotcha.
Like, I don't care. I have no sympathy. And when I see some of these like ads, like, oh, $99 to Hawaii, I'm like, no, don't do that. It's so bad. It's like, don't come here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and the discussion right now that's really interesting is that the quality of tourists that we're getting are not the kind of tourists we want. We want courteous, culturally aware, high spending tourists, but the kinds that you're getting when you have those type of flash sales or, are the kinds that are at Airbnbs that are doing things illegally. They're just buying at the Costco and, they're not spending locally. They're spending at Costco, Walmart. This is their MO. They will totally show up with their $99 ticket. They will go to Costco or Walmart, buy all their groceries for the week, stay at their Airbnb, and then they will go on all these illegal hikes. That's totally they're not spending locally. And that's the big problem. Like tourism before, we had so many international tourists, like specifically like the Japanese was a huge segment of our tourism, and they spend, right? They go shopping, they do these tours, they eat, at restaurants locally. And, and that's the thing, like, that's why it was such a good thing for the economy. But with the international market gone, we're relying on the domestic market, and it's not good.
Right.
It's like, and they're very, a lot of them, and I hate to generalize, but like, because I work in news and I report on it all the time, like it's these clashes of, well, they don't wear their masks because wherever they're from, they don't have a mask mandate, or, I don't know. It's just this kind of disrespectful, entitled attitude. And I can't relate to that. And, I'm not from Hawaii, right? I'm from LA. So I understand that I'm a transplant, but I have adopted the kind of culture in a sense that you just have to understand where people are coming from. This is Hawaii. They were never part of the United States before, right? They were, and if you know the history of Hawaii, they were, their queen was overthrown. The United States took the land illegally for business interests. So, I mean, it's still a very sore spot for a lot of people, and for tourists to come or whoever to say that, hey, you need our money. You can't close. You need us. I mean, that's just like, no, don't do that. So I don't want to be mean and say that most people are like that. I just feel like that's what we see more of, but. Oh, and then they touched the turtles. That's the other thing that made news. Did you see this?
I heard touch the turtles. Like,
what the heck? And the seals.
The seals. I saw that too. They were going.
That's horrible.
Yeah, like why would you go down and touch an animal? Like
I don't know what it is, but we've gotten this whole rash of people that think it's okay to just touch turtles that are sunbathing, or the seals that are sleeping. These are wild animals. Yeah, okay, the honu, which is the turtle, is like, they're not going to like do anything, right? But I mean, why are you going to bother them? You're basically rubbing your dirty hands on them, and like you could harm their, with the seals, if there's certain situations where if they smell foreign smells on each other, they will get rejected, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? And what's the need? You could watch them and admire them and take pictures, but I mean, I just don't understand the need to go and pet them. It's not a zoo. It's
again, we're in a different age group where social media challenges are like the thing to do. Things copy, replicate.
Is that what it is?
These are the experiences they want to live through virtual space instead of actually going to places. So it's just different, and I'm trying to learn and try to understand, but that's why we bring locals or different perspectives, because that's the important part of traveling and sharing information. I don't think a lot of the travelers' intent is to destroy the culture or be a nuisance. A lot of it is just ignorance, or they just don't know, or overly excited, or whatever. But I'm so glad I was able to have you on and just share your experiences from a different, I think we should start finding warehouse shopping, vacation rentals, and social media platforms for the degradation of our economy in Hawaii right now or something.
We're trying to diversify. The conversation has been around how do we diversify away from tourism or make it more maybe ecotourism? Because, when I was in the Philippines, this was the same discussion, right? Look at Boracay, right?
I love what Boracay. But look what they did. They changed it.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That's exactly what they should.
But they shut it down. Remember, that's why they shut it for like, how long was it a year? I don't know. They shut it for a long time.
Yeah. They said 6 months, but it was a long time. They opened things so slowly, but look how it turned out. And, sometimes you need aggressive strategies that people don't understand, but it really helped their infrastructure because it was gross. It was bad. Yeah,
I remember when I went there and I did get some rashes and I remember thinking, ew, what is this? And then I've heard the news later about, the sewers and stuff. And I was like, oh God, gross. Yeah. But now it is much better. And they have learned their lesson in terms of managing their pollution. But, we need that same mentality here also. So hopefully we'll work on it. I don't know. It's kind of disappointing. And a lot of people, if you talk to them, they're kind of disappointed with how slow the progress has been, but we're trying.
Well, I really wish great luck to the islands of Hawaii. I know tourism is such a hard thing to talk about, especially with the pandemic, with inflation, with economy and people wanting to get out. But, I totally understand how opportunity like this is going to allow us to innovate better. I mean, everyone has an opinion now. And I think it's important that we realize that there are a lot of more factors than just money that play into travel, that we have to look at how much it influences every sector and then what it does for the people who do support it. We're talking about the local economy who are still struggling, but yet tourism is exploding. And how is those factors not meeting in the middle? But I do want to thank you for being here, Annalisa. I know you're such a busy person. To get you on the call, it's so exciting, especially to have your insight and expertise on these subjects. But with that said, any final thoughts that you wanted to share with the viewers before you leave today?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Alvin. This was so fun to talk to you about this and just to be authentic and let people know that this is how locals feel, and I know when you talk to others and talk about travel to Hawaii, I hope you'll also share that message of let's be responsible, let's be considerate, let's be kind, we like to throw around the word aloha here, but I think people have lost that term when they come, and people have almost used it as a weapon. People will say, well, where's your aloha, when we're trying to tell people, don't do this, when you're trying to guide visitors onto how things are done here, there's so much division. And so I think just for you to be able to use your platform and share this message, I appreciate it. We just need more tourists and visitors to be educated. That's all.
Yeah, I think, and that's what out of all of this we'll learn, be more mindful, more purposeful in the things that we do, really not take for granted, the things around us, especially the opportunities, because of course we always want to share these things with future generations and the people we love. So thank you, Annalisa, for being here. I'll extend the favor again to hopefully be on the show again to share, I guess, any updates and hopefully the new strategies that HTA is implementing will help the infrastructure of Hawaii. So
yeah, hopefully. Thank you, Alvin.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Awesome. So advocates like Annalisa and others, passionate locals who are doing their part to educate and support the initiatives of our state to really ensure that their homes continue to flourish. As we become more confident in our travel plans, one word of advice is always to be mindful of your presence in a new place or destination. Responsible travel will be an issue for the future, and being able to maintain tourism without harming natural and cultural environments while minimizing the negative impacts of tourism. We can all make a difference, and I hope that all the viewers and travelers out there will be a little bit more conscientious when it comes to traveling anywhere you go. So let's try to enjoy, but respect the lands and the communities that we do visit. So thank you again for all the viewers and listeners who've been able to join our show. Without your support and views, this would not be possible. And we are always so thrilled to be able to share our knowledge and experience with all of our viewers. If you are looking for a travel agent or just being able to travel out, please call our advisors. We make tailor-made vacations, and our travel agency is 301-248-8898, Travelwise International. So again, Smart People Travelwise airs every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time and 3 p.m. East Coast time. My name is Alvin Adriano, CEO of Travelwise International, a Filipino-owned and operated travel agency that's been dedicated in serving the Filipino community since 1989. So thank you for being here today. Till next time, mabuhay.
Just like a friend from back home. This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.